Loving someone is sometimes like seeing the entire world in their eyes. A smile, a word, a glance. And then one day, that world slowly sinks into silence. Your phone stops ringing. Your heart aches when you hear that song on the street. Everything looks the same, but nothing is the same anymore. When love ends, something inside you goes missing too. But the heart doesn't accept that easily. You don't want to forget. You keep thinking, maybe if you wait a little longer, everything will go back to the way it was. That's why heartbreak isn't just one feeling. We go through 5 different stages, each carrying its own wound. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Each speaks a different language of the heart, and perhaps this journey ultimately teaches us how to return to ourselves. Today, we're at the first stop on that journey, denial, the quietest yet most powerful storm after a breakup. Into the denial stage of heartbreak. They leave, but you don't let them go. In the first days after a breakup, the world falls into a strange kind of silence. But it's not a peaceful silence. It's the kind that screams from within. Your heart hears the word over, but doesn't understand it. The mind accepts it, but the heart resists. That's why the first reaction is usually denial. No, it can't end like this. This is just a break. Give it some time. They'll come back. You may not say these words aloud, but they echo constantly in your mind. You cling to a shred of hope. You check their last story, read into the song they posted. See, they're still thinking about me, you tell yourself. But maybe it's just a song. Still, the heart refuses to see the truth, because seeing it means admitting there's no way back. Sometimes you don't see the breakup as the end, but as a misunderstanding. You tell yourself things like, maybe they're thinking the same as I am. Maybe they just need time. Maybe we met at the wrong time. And that one word, maybe, that tiny echo in your heart can keep you stuck for weeks, even months. That's where denial hides, inside that fragile maybe. During this time, your mind tries to protect your heart because accepting the truth hurts. So your brain tricks you, softens the blow. You act like nothing happened. You tell your friends, whatever. It wasn't meant to be anyway, but when you're alone, the silence tightens in your throat. At night, your mind fills with old memories, the laughter, a text, a glance. They replay like a movie. And before you know it, you're writing new scenes in your head. Maybe they'll call tomorrow. Maybe they miss me too. That's exactly what denial is. You know the truth, but you don't want to. Believe it, because believing it means that person is truly gone and your heart isn't ready for. That everything feels unfinished. You hear a song, it finds you. A smell of coffee, it brings back a moment. You hide inside coincidences. Go to the same places, hoping to run into them. You say, it could happen by chance, but deep down, you're fooling yourself a little. This phase is full of contradictions, a mix of longing and defiance, hope and denial. You create a fog around your emotions to protect yourself. You can't move forward, but you can't go back either. You're stuck in a kind of emotional limbo. But denial isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a defense mechanism. Your heart's way of surviving the shock. To accept pain, you first have to soften it. So denial, in a way, is how your heart keeps itself alive. And one of the hardest parts of this stage is watching someone act like nothing happened. They're smiling, going out, posting pictures. And you think, how did they move on so fast? But no one is ever as strong as they seem. Maybe they're quiet at night, just like you. Maybe they're denying the pain too, just in a different way. The biggest mistake you can make during denial is losing yourself completely in it. Because after a point, ignoring reality doesn't heal you. It only delays the pain. It's like covering a wound instead of treating it. Eventually, it starts to ache again. That's why denial is a transition, a time for your heart to prepare itself for acceptance. Fragile, tired, but still full of hope. And one day, that little maybe turns into a why. And that's when you enter the second stage, anger chapter 2, anger, or why me? The second stop after a breakup is usually anger. The fog of denial starts to fade, and you begin to face reality. But it's rarely a calm confrontation. Suddenly, you feel a heat rising inside your chest. That's anger. You don't even know exactly who or what you're angry at, but it fills you completely. Sometimes it's directed at yourself, sometimes at the other person, and sometimes at life itself. I gave so much, why didn't it work? What did I do wrong? Why didn't they love me? Why did it have to end like this? Each of these questions is a spark of anger, but underneath them lies something deeper, disappointment, because to love someone, to build a story with them, to dream about a future together, all of that is an emotional investment, and waking up one morning to find that investment suddenly gone, realizing that all those beautiful memories don't mean anything anymore, feels like an internal collapse. Anger is the shield against that. Collapse, the heart's way of defending itself. You cling to anger the way you cling to armor, trying not to feel the pain underneath. Some people in this phase talk constantly. They tell the same story to their friends again and again, sometimes shouting, sometimes crying, others withdraw completely. They carry a silent anger. They seem calm, but inside their thoughts loop endlessly. I shouldn't have sent that last message. I should have left sooner. I wish I'd treated them the way they treated me. Anger can explode outward or turn inward. When it explodes, you blame the other person. They did this to me. They betrayed me. They left me halfway. When it turns inward, the blame shifts. I'm stupid. I wasn't enough. It's my fault. Either way, your mind runs an endless interrogation. Ironically, anger is when pain feels most alive. But you mistake it for strength, because unlike sadness or tears, anger is active. It has movement, energy, but if that energy doesn't find direction, it starts to consume you. Your sleep gets disrupted, your appetite disappears, focus becomes hard. Some people throw themselves into workouts, others into work, school, or social life. But beneath everything, there's still that familiar echo. I can't accept this. Anger replaces denial. It's a reaction. You no longer reject the breakup, but you're not ready to accept it either. So your mind keeps searching for answers. What if we talked again? Maybe they'll regret it. Maybe I misunderstood. Each of these thoughts carries a fragment of hope that still lingers inside the anger. Part of you still says come back, while another part screams never again. And maybe that's why the anger stage is the most exhausting. There's a war inside your heart. One side wants to forgive, the other wants to forget. Your mind insists, I'm right, while your heart whispers, but I still love them. You're caught right in the middle, but instead of suppressing it, you need to recognize this phase, because anger is a doorway, the energy inside it, if guided well, can turn into healing. Some people start writing, painting, making music, or diving into creative work. Others, for the first time, start truly listening to themselves, asking, what do I really want? That's when anger begins to make sense. Remember, anger isn't a bad thing. It means you still care, you still feel. But you can't stay there too long, because anger isn't the destination of healing. It's just a passage through it. If you stay inside it, you burn. But if you pass through it, you're reborn. And one day, without realizing it, you'll say, I'm not angry anymore. That's the moment when pain loses its power. And after that, a new phase begins, bargaining, the inner season of what if. But before moving on, it's important to understand this. Anger has a purpose. It pulls you out of emotional paralysis and helps you feel again. So yes, anger burns, but it also revives. Chapter 3, Bargaining, What If? Denial has ended, anger has subsided. Now comes the quiet, introspective stage, bargaining. This phase is that gray area where your heart hasn't fully let go, but your mind isn't entirely convinced of going back. It's complex, exhausting, yet profoundly human. Here, a person places reason and emotion at the same table, and that table is usually a silent battlefield. The mind says, it's over, while the heart whispers, what if it's not? This whisper feels so convincing that without realizing it, you start making internal deals. If I give it one more chance, maybe it would change. If I'm a little more patient, maybe it would work out. Maybe they're sad too, just not showing it. These thoughts form the essence of the bargaining phase. Instead of confronting reality, you try to ease the pain by imagining alternative scenarios. Mind builds a bridge between reality and hope, but this bridge is really just a temporary refuge. Some people revisit old messages during this time. They look at photos, reread conversations, even sigh, "What were those days like?" Perhaps they secretly check social media. Are they okay? Have they found someone else? Are they happy without me? This is really a check on hope, because one part of you still wants, maybe there's still a way. During this period, people often develop a plan to get them back. Some wait for the right moment to message. Some hope for a chance encounter. Some withdraw entirely, but run imaginary conversations in their mind. One day we'll meet again, and then they'll understand. These thoughts are like peace treaties your heart makes with itself. It just takes time to realize these agreements are one-sided. In the bargaining stage, you also negotiate with your own feelings. I love them, but they don't deserve it. I should forget, but I can't. These contradictions are natural parts of emotional healing, because the heart wants to hold on one last time before letting go. This is perhaps the most fragile yet strongest part of being human. Sometimes you feel a sense of calm during this process. I'm doing better now, you tell yourself. But this calm is usually fragile. A small memory, a song, a scent can bring everything back to life. The heart immediately returns to bargaining. Maybe this is a sign, but really, that sign is just an echo from the past. It isn't truly calling you forward. It's the last dance of old memories. The bargaining process often goes unnoticed. It's not as dramatic as anger, nor as deep as depression, but it may be the most exhausting phase because your mind is constantly talking. Endless sentences, unfinished possibilities, a rewinded film playing over and over, the most common. Mistake in this stage is self-deception. You start dressing up things you don't really want with, "Maybe we could still be friends. Time will heal everything." But the voice beneath these words actually says, "I'm not ready. I don't want to let go." That's why honesty is crucial during this stage, not to the other person, but to yourself. Because bargaining is no longer about the other person. It's a negotiation with your own feelings. You start asking yourself, what do I truly want? Them or the idea I built with them? And that question opens the door to transformation. You begin to accept that something is over. First, not with words, but with silence. You no longer message them, yet you still think about them. You still miss them. But it hurts a little less, because deep down, some stories remain unfinished, but people still live on. This awareness gradually settles in. One morning you wake up, no longer feeling the need to control everything. The pain may still be there, but it no longer controls you. That's when you realize bargaining is over. It is replaced by a new silence, the quiet of depression. But this silence is not a collapse. It is the beginning of turning inward. Chapter 4. Depression. There is only silence when the bargaining phase ends. The most difficult stage begins for many, depression. This is not like a dramatic scene in a movie. It's quiet, deep, and often unnoticed. At this point, a person no longer denies, gets angry, or bargains. The reality has been fully accepted, but this acceptance brings with it a profound emptiness. During the depression stage, people often feel intensely alone. This loneliness does not mean that no one is physically around. On the contrary, people may be present, yet no one can fill the void inside your heart. While walking down the street, sipping coffee, or even going to work, your mind keeps returning to the same thought. They're gone. It's over. They're no longer in my life. Emotions during this period are typically slow. Subtle yet deep, laughing becomes difficult, and even music may no longer bring joy. Some people lose their appetite, while others may eat but find no pleasure in it. Sleep becomes irregular. Either you sleep too much or barely at all. Everything feels muted, like a grey veil over the world. Most importantly, people tend to question their own worth. Why did I deserve this? Why wasn't I loved? The depression stage is, in essence, an inner mourning process. When the heart recognizes a loss, it naturally withdraws, and this withdrawal can provide a crucial space for healing. The heart needs to process the pain so it can prepare for future relationships. During this stage, people often find themselves dwelling on memories, a photo, a message, a song. Each one revives the past. Many feel lost in these memories. But this getting lost is actually a kind of internal cleansing. The mind and heart are working to fully comprehend and process what has happened. Depression also often brings heightened self-reflection. You replay every moment. Count your mistakes and shortcomings and ask yourself questions. What did I do wrong at that moment? What if something had been different? Was I good enough? This analysis can intensify the pain, but it also creates awareness. You start to see relationship dynamics, your own boundaries, and your needs more clearly. This phase is also an opportunity for empathy and self-discovery. You turn inward, spend time alone, and realize there are certain emotions, behaviors, or habits you may want to change. The process is painful, yet immensely valuable for personal growth. Another characteristic of depression is social withdrawal. Meeting friends, laughing or enjoying outings feels difficult, but this withdrawal is not rejection. It is an inner regrouping. The heart is preparing for a new beginning, and it needs to do so at its own pace. Psychologists note that the depression stage after a breakup can vary in intensity. For some, it may resemble clinical depression with persistent sadness, loss of interest, or even physical symptoms like fatigue or headaches. Recognizing these signs and allowing oneself to feel the emotions without judgment is important. It is also a period when journaling, mindfulness, or gentle creative expression can aid in processing the grief. The most critical awareness during this phase is it can last a long time, and that is completely normal. Forcing yourself to move on too quickly can be counterproductive. You need to allow the pain to be fully felt so that you can eventually move to the next stage. Acceptance. Acceptance arises from the silence depression brings. It is the first step toward inner peace. Depression is often the heaviest stage, but it is also one of the most instructive and transformative. Here, you not only recognize the loss of your love, but also the parts of yourself you may have lost along the way. And eventually, you learn to emerge again from the place you once thought lost. This phase, while challenging, holds the potential for profound growth, understanding your own emotional patterns, building resilience, and cultivating self-compassion. Depression, in this sense, is not just a period of suffering, it is a teacher, preparing the heart to love and live fully once again. Chapter 5. Acceptance. It's time to move on. After the quiet of depression, the heart slowly begins to return to itself, entering the stage of acceptance. This phase is the most peaceful yet also the most realistic part of heartbreak. There is no denial, no anger, no bargaining, only reality and the effort to make peace with it. Acceptance is, for many, like a slow awakening. At first, you may not notice it, but the days feel lighter, the nights calmer. Photos no longer bring the sharp sting of pain. Old messages, once causing that intense ache, now give way to a quiet understanding. During this stage, a person begins to see the past relationship as it truly was. Mistakes are no longer magnified. Happy moments are no longer exaggerated. A sense of balance emerges. Yes, this relationship was important to me, but it's over now. Yes, I experienced pain, but I survived. Acceptance is, in a way, emotional maturity. You no longer blame yourself or the other person. You simply acknowledge what happened, and this acknowledgement forms the foundation for a new beginning. People in this stage often reflect on the past and gain a clearer understanding of their emotional boundaries. What did I feel? What did I deserve? What can I do differently in my next relationship? These questions are a natural part of acceptance, and the answers emerge over time without force. Acceptance also opens the door to the future. Your heart no longer clings to old pains. It becomes ready for new people, new experiences, and new joys. This is the most positive aspect of heartbreak, realizing your heart can still love. Some people support their acceptance process with rituals or mindfulness practices. For example, organizing old belongings, deleting old messages, safely storing memories. These actions help the mind and heart fully release the past relationship. It's not just about letting go, it's also about recognizing the experience as a lesson. During acceptance, people often turn more attention to themselves. They invest time in hobbies, work, friends, and even self-discovery. Energy once believed lost is redirected inward, and often the soul's strength reaches its peak during this period. From the outside, acceptance may sometimes seem like coldness, but it is really balance. It is not about suppressing pain, but learning to make peace with it. This peace allows a person to rediscover their own worth and emotional boundaries. At the end of acceptance, one realizes, I survived. I am open to love. Past pains are not obstacles to the future. At this point, heartbreak is no longer a burden, but a learning experience. Even if the emptiness is not completely gone, it is replaced with awareness and peace. One day, you notice the shadow of the past no longer follows you. You can walk again, laugh again, and love again. Acceptance may be the most valuable stage of heartbreak. It is where you make peace with both yourself and the relationship you had, and this peace matures you and prepares you for the future. In summary, heartbreak passes through 5 stages: denial, inability to accept reality, clinging to fragments of hope, anger, outward or inward expression of frustration, an attempt to manage the energy of loss, bargaining, imagining alternative pasts, searching for hope, depression, silent inward mourning, acceptance, acknowledging reality, learning lessons, opening up to the future. Each stage is different, but all are natural parts of the heart's healing process. Passing through them makes a person stronger, more conscious, and more ready for what lies ahead. The end of heartbreak. Healing and starting anew. You've now gone through the 5 stages of heartbreak: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And you've arrived at the most important step that follows acceptance. This is the stage where you say, okay, it's time to heal, and turn back to yourself and your life. From a therapist's perspective, this is the final reconciliation talk. An awareness of the promise you give to yourself, to your past experience, and to your future. Perhaps the most critical point in the healing process is making peace with yourself. Throughout heartbreak, you may have blamed yourself, dwelled on mistakes, and felt unworthy. But now, you need to recognize this. Every emotion, every mistake, every misstep has made you stronger. Tell yourself, I did my best, I was enough, and now I forgive myself. As a therapist, I recommend saying this out loud. Expressing it verbally helps your mind accept it as well. Past mistakes now serve as lessons, not as sources of guilt. Once internalized, your heart gradually frees itself from the burden of old pain. During heartbreak, many of us try to control the loss. We distract ourselves with hopes like, Maybe they'll come back, maybe they'll change, maybe they'll realize. Now look back from here. That period is over. The step after acceptance is to truly release the loss. A simple exercise. Imagine that person, those memories, as a balloon, and slowly let the balloon float into the sky. With each breath, feel yourself getting lighter. This is not just symbolic. It's an emotional practice that reduces the weight in your heart and makes room for a new beginning. The next step in healing is showing yourself compassion. Heartbreak often causes us to neglect ourselves, ignoring our emotions, neglecting our needs. Now turn to yourself. Nourish yourself. Cook the meals you love. Take care of your body. Go for a walk, exercise, or try something relaxing. Give your mind time. Read, write, meditate. From a therapist's perspective, the love and care you show yourself are the foundation of emotional healing. You cannot fully love others without feeling your own worth. Heartbreak may seem endless, but its greatest treasure is its lessons. Past relationships teach us which boundaries were neglected, which behaviors were unhealthy. Did I express my needs enough? This awareness forms the foundation for being ready for the next relationship. Therapists often explain, understanding the pain is the key to experiencing future love more maturely and healthily. Your suffering is not in vain. It shapes you into a more conscious, self-aware person, the final stage, and perhaps the most beautiful, hope again. Your heart is ready. The shadow of the past no longer controls you. Recognizing this gives you a sense of inner freedom. As a therapist, I suggest starting with small steps. Explore new hobbies and ways to express yourself. Take small social steps. Spend time with friends. Open yourself to new people without judgment. The key here is patience. When your heart is healed, you'll realize you're ready to love again, this time with more awareness, strength, and peace. Now take a deep breath and say to yourself, I have lived through this entire process. I felt the pain, tasted the anger, tried hope, and accepted the depression. Now I am ready to heal.